Hello and welcome back to Kendo Nagasaki 101, the channel where you can find out all about the mystical and spiritual work of Kendo Nagasaki, the masked wrestler and mystic. Okay, we're picking up from the video about the final crystallizing of Kendo Nagasaki's physical manifestation, of how everything he had communicated to Yogensha came together so that the man could fully and effectively channel the spiritual samurai. Once again, with hindsight, we can reflect upon how important, influential and successful Kendo Nagasaki was to become following his debut. And if you've been following this series, you also know how incredibly talented and skillful Yogensha, the man behind his mask, was. It should therefore also be abundantly clear how totally ready Yogensha and the Nagasaki spirit were by now to take on all comers in the world of British professional wrestling. But there was still the matter of their public debut. In any martial art or combat sport, particularly those which involve hand-to-hand combat, one's first competitive match is complex in many ways. Regardless of how skillful and well trained you are inevitably confronting a combatant who is more experienced than you. Furthermore, your opponent will have a reputation to uphold, but you will not yet have one, so you will be an unknown enigma to the audience, and they can be quick to judge. Also, there was another complication here. Until the appearance of Kendo Nagasaki, new masked wrestlers were, in fact, just new visual versions of already established wrestlers who had decided to don a mask in order to wrestle under a new identity or as a new character. The promoters knew who was behind the mask, so they would be able to set up appropriate and interesting matches with established opponents and give them decent billing, so it would appear to wrestling fans that the new and mysterious masked wrestler already had a worthy reputation and skills to be reckoned with, sometimes involving championships allegedly won in distant lands. All this would increase the interest in a match involving a new masked man, but what inevitably happened was that his former identity would emerge and the sense of mystery would disappear, often leaving a sense of anticlimax. However, as there was no known established wrestler behind Kendo Nagasaki's mask, this was a whole new ballgame. There had never been a brand new masked wrestler before, so everyone was in the dark about how things would unfold. This would be genuinely interesting. Because Yogensha was so skillful, the wrestling promotion's publicity machine had plenty of ammunition with which to promote the as-yet unseen Kendo Nagasaki. A hugely controversial challenge was announced. Nagasaki invited all comers to try to pin him, meaning to get him into a hold with both his shoulders down on the canvas for a count of 3. According to the publicity, he was the man that could not be pinned. Now that was a very bold claim, and it was highly effective in bringing this brand new masked wrestler to the forefront of attention for the public and the whole wrestling community. The result was that for his first ever match, Kendo Nagasaki was top of the bill. That first match was to be at Willenhall Baths in the West Midlands against seasoned professional wrestler Jumping Jim Hussey. Hussey was, in fact, a true professional and a heel, a bad guy. He tended to be matched against any wrestler who came from overseas and also against new wrestlers who would be perceived as lambs to the slaughter, making their debut matches grisly but engrossing spectacles. Hussey's harsh tactics against newcomers meant that they gained the sympathies of the audience and were readily viewed as babyfaces, but when he faced Kendo Nagasaki, the tables were unexpectedly turned. All Kendo Nagasaki fans are, of course, familiar with the way in which he arrives at a wrestling ring, wearing the Kendo sport gear and the cape, and carrying Abbe's samurai sword. But what is not so widely known is that he did this from his very first match. Thus, Kendo Nagasaki's debut was an amazing and completely unexpected spectacle, and it seemed to cause the audience to form an unsympathetic and suspicious impression of him right away. Perhaps it was the deep mystery of this new masked man, perhaps it was his sheer size and muscularity, and perhaps it was the fact that the audience genuinely thought he was Japanese. But right from his first appearance, they were very wary of Nagasaki. Paradoxically, Yogensha had gone into professional wrestling with the clear intention of emulating his good guy, babyface mentor, Count Bartelli, but he was to find that channeling the Nagasaki spirit brought more than even he had bargained for. When the wrestling started, what came through was Nagasaki's absolutely uncompromising warrior nature. Excellent and pure technique was undeniably evident, but so was utter dominance, ruthlessness, and a devastating will to win. Yogensha was later to reflect that the Nagasaki spirit had dominated him just as much as his wrestling opponent, completely overturning his aspirations of being a baby-faced wrestler. Nagasaki had animated him to be a far worse heel than even his hard-man opponent, Hasse. True to form, Hasse had begun using his trademark dirty tricks on Nagasaki as soon as the first round began, but unexpectedly the audience began applauding and then cheering Hasse and booing Nagasaki when he retaliated. Even though Nagasaki was only trying to hold his own against Hasse's underhand tactics, virtually every move he made was greeted with hostility and resentment. They booed and jeered him, and so, perceiving the audience to be an additional adversary, Nagasaki rose to the challenge and systematically pulverized Hasse, winning his first ever match. That day, the audience in Willenhall witnessed the birth of a whole new level of brutal heel. Thus, Kendo Nagasaki had arrived on the British professional wrestling scene with great impact. He was unlike any other wrestler before, and as history has shown, unlike any ever. Nagasaki stood out from other wrestlers like the proverbial steak, which according to the Japanese proverb gets hammered down, in this case by the wrestling audience's hatred of him from round one of match one on day one. However, there is a longer version of that proverb, which Nagasaki absolutely typifies. Deru kui wa utareru ga, desgita kui wa utaranai. It means the steak that sticks up will be hammered down, but the steak that sticks up more will not. This version of the proverb means that if you are extraordinary, you will be pressured to conform, but if you want to truly succeed and be a leader, then you must really stand out. In this sense, as far as Nagasaki was concerned, it was, most emphatically, job done. Well, once again, I'm afraid my time is up for this video, so please do come back to hear some more about the great Kendo Nagasaki. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all again very soon. So, as Kendo would say, onwards. Bye bye.